mentoring missions advocates. This is GlobalCASTresources.com.
Hi, I'm Bevan with GlobalCAST Resources, and I'd like to stop and ask the question, is missions mobilization a calling? Are individuals called to missions mobilization? Because we know about the other fivefold ministry callings of the Bible, right? You've got the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the teacher, the pastor. All of those are very clear callings and giftings that people step into. And these days we understand that people can function in those fivefold ministries even as they are called to other roles, such as journalist or businessman or artist or mom. And so this is really valuable, that people do what they do with a clear sense of God's calling and leading. Great, love it. And yet the question still remains, is missions mobilization a calling? How does that fit into all of this? And so I think personally I have experienced a missions mobilization call. When I was a very young man, I actually had a dream in which this gnarly, bearded old guy came right up into my face and started shaking his bony finger at me and saying, "Blow that trumpet, boy, blow that trumpet." And I was startled wide awake, and all I remembered other than the dream was a Bible verse, which was Isaiah 58. And so I went and looked it up, and this is what Isaiah 58 says. "Shout it aloud, do not hold back, raise your voice like a trumpet." And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. But I didn't understand what it meant. And over a decade later, I went through the Kairos course, and I stayed afterwards to go through the training to become a Kairos course facilitator. And during that training, they put Isaiah 58 on the board and said, this is for mobilizers, because mobilizers have a prophetic role in the body of Christ to blow the trumpet and wake up the body of Christ to what God is doing. And so I was like jolted right out of my chair, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's what that was about. And I was so grateful that I had already, even before that point, been functioning as a missions mobilizer. So that's great. So I definitely agree with Max Chisholm and the Kairos course and Simply Mobilizing that missions mobilization has a prophetic role in the body of Christ. And yet, I would add to that I have seen the other four ministry callings also functioning as mission mobilizers. For example, you can probably think of pastors who are doing a great job of shepherding and yet are very clear about what God is doing in the world and are very effective in helping equip and launch workers to the uttermost parts of the earth. So they're functioning as a pastor, and yet they're also functioning as a missions mobilizer. And maybe I'm an example of somebody who's called as a teacher, anointed as a teacher, but also have a heart for missions mobilization. So perhaps you could be called to any number of things, and you wouldn't label yourself a missions mobilizer, but you understand God's heart for the nations, and you're passing that on to your sphere of influence. You're helping people step up into their roles in the Great Commission. And so I would say to you, thank you for blowing the trumpet, and thank you for mobilizing people into God's heart for the nations.
The whole church bringing the whole gospel to the whole world. This is GlobalCASTresources.com.